Good morning and happy Monday. This is the Westminster Chamber's COVID-19 series. And I'm Wayne Anderson, and my topic today that I'm going to cover for you is stress management. And more importantly, stress management as it relates to the workplace. Now, I will be using slides, and if you're interested, I will place the slides for you at the end of the session. So let's get started. What I'm going to cover today is, first, we're going to talk about what is stress. Secondly, we're going to talk about how our bodies respond to stress. And more importantly, how stress impacts our thoughts. And then I'm going to talk about some things that you can do to deal with stress. But before I get going, I want you to know that there will be a number of resources available to you that will help you in your business situations. And we will also plop into or make available to you at the end some a link to some auxiliary costs program that's available. All right, let's talk about stress. Dr. John Bergman talks about three different kinds of stress. He talks about physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. What's interesting about all of those different types of stress is the body literally doesn't know the difference. The body actually utilizes the stress the same or processes the stress the same way. Let's talk about chemical stress. Chemical stress is the kinds of stress that we put in our bodies either from food or the pollution in the area or whatever. But it's things that are entered into our bodies that our bodies aren't used to having, so the body has to deal with it. Physical stress is just like it sounds, some kind of a trauma. You fell down some stairs or you tripped. And emotional stress, those are more about the things we think about and how we handle stress through our thoughts. And we're going to focus a lot on emotional stress because that's really the kind of stress that we're under today. So, our systems, which I always like to say the body is kind of the same way it was when we were cave people, so we're still version 1.0 in that it handles things the same way. Now, we have an auditory nervous system, and it's broken into two different pieces. The first piece is called the sympathetic nervous system, and this is the one you hear about a lot in terms of our fight or flight. And the second part is called the parasympathetic system. Let's talk about the sympathetic system for a while. The sympathetic system is sort of like when we saw a tiger. We didn't know whether we needed to fight, flight, freeze, or whatever. But what happens internally when that happens is our bodies pumps all kinds of blood to our muscles. It makes our vision a little bit better. It shuts down our bladder. It also shuts down our immune system and our digestive system, because from a body point of view, those are expensive systems, and the body doesn't want to deal with that. The key, however, is it does all of that because it expects us to be in that stress state for a short period of time. What happens? The tiger goes away, or or we are able to overtake it, but the situation ends and the stress goes away and it moves into our parasympathetic state. We like to call this our rest, digest, and repair state. This is the state that we're in mostly when we're sleeping, for example. But what happens when we move to that state? Then the immune system comes back online, the digestive systems come back online, things start to settle down, you get like all kinds of neat little feelings going on throughout your body, and the body starts repairing any kinds of cuts or anything that you've gotten, and it starts taking care of itself. Let's move back to the sympathetic state again. Remember I said there's three different kinds of stress states: emotional, chemical, and physical. Well, when we're in that emotional state, right, it acts just like we've seen a tiger. The problem, however, is we sit in that state for a long period of time. So let's talk a little bit more about what that means. When we're in an emotional state and we sit in that state for a long period of time, that means, remember what I said earlier, that means things like your immune system is sort of depressed a little bit. So you don't get a chance to take care of your body like it's supposed to be. As a matter of fact, I looked up some statistics in the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. They said that 85% of the diseases that we have are caused by emotions. And they also said that 90% of doctor visits are stress related. And this is information from the CDC. So to talk about us being in that state for a really long time, and essentially what's happening is the very thing we're trying to avoid, which is getting sick, happens when we stay in that state because our immune system isn't operating the way it's supposed to. So one of the things we need to think about is, all right, then how do we deal with our emotions? I'm going to give you some things to think about as it relates to us as humans. And by the way, these emotional things that happen, they happen a lot in the workplace, they happen in a home, it happens all over the place because it's tied to what we think about. Let's talk about that for a second. No emotion occurs without first being preceded by a thought. No emotion occurs, this is for humans, no emotion occurs without first being preceded by a thought. So what do I mean by that? If I told you something tragic happened, I just planted a thought in your head and you're going to start to feel bad. You're going to start to have negative thoughts because of, and as a result, your body's going to respond in that stress state. Now, let's take it a step further. What if 5 minutes later, I tell you a joke? You're going to laugh. You're going to get out of that state. You're going to move more into the parasympathetic state. You will then start to have all kinds of other positive things happening to your body. So we already know that what we think about, and it may sound simple, but it's the way our bodies are made, what we think about can impact our stress levels as well as our physical well-being. So Dr. Dennis Waitley says, you always move in the direction of your most dominant thought. You always move in the direction of your most dominant thought. So what does that mean? That means if we keep ourselves in that thought process where we're constantly dealing with those negative things, then all of the things we do as it relates to our thoughts, some of the physical things we do as well, are going to all be tied to that. And what does that mean in terms of stress? That means we're going to keep ourselves, just through our thoughts, in that stress state. In the stress state, the body doesn't know any different, so it believes that it puts you into the sympathetic state, pushes down your immune system, things start to happen. If we think more positively, if we do things that makes us feel better, and we therefore we think about these positive things, then we always move in the direction of our most dominant thought. So that means that everything we do, our bodies are going to respond to that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what the heck can we do about that. Well, as I talked to you earlier, I said that there was 3 different kinds of stress: emotional, chemical, and physical. On the chemical side, I said what happens is we are putting a lot of stuff in our bodies. So therefore, diet. And by the way, I'm sorry, but I'm going to sound a little bit like grandma, and frankly, I'm probably about her age anyway. All right, but those things still work for us. So we should look at our diet. We should look at our eating habits, because those kinds of things can, in fact, and obviously look at what we eat, but those kinds of things can create a chemical stress in our bodies. I know through, and by the way, I'm talking to you about things that I also talk to some of the executives that I coach who are in stressful situations. So we talk about a lot of the same kind of things. But right now, through the COVID-19 and the social distancing that we're doing, some people are literally shutting down from some of the key people in their lives. So what we should start to do is, those people make us feel good in many cases. And so what we should try to do is stay electronically connected to them. We have Facebook, we have FaceTime, we have Zoom, we have a number of things that can keep us connected to those key people in our lives. So I highly recommend you do that. If you have a remote, click it off or change the channel and put it down for a little while. So should you be getting updates from the news as to what's going on? Absolutely. But I know of some people that keep the news on all day. What are we doing? We're adding to that stress scenario that I've talked about earlier. So yes, get your update, 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever works for you, but then put that remote down. Or shift it to a channel that has comedy on it. Or shift it to a channel. I'll tell you what I personally do. I spend 15, 20 minutes in the morning, I listen to the news, I get the latest update, and then I switch it to my music channel. And then I'm walking around singing and dancing, and fortunately I live by myself, so nobody gets upset by it, but I sing and dance, and that keeps me in the state that I want to be in, okay? Exercise. Remember, I told you I'm going to sound like grandma, but exercise. It's amazing what the exercise does. Now, you need to know that exercise is physical stress. It does put your body into a physical stress scenario. However, it's only there for a short period of time. And when you come out of it, you go into a parasympathetic state and your body starts taking care of itself again, okay? So, a lot of people have talked to me about, well, I don't have gym equipment, or do I have to run out and buy gym equipment? Some of you have equipment, some of you don't. If you don't have equipment, there's a ton of different things, YouTube videos and things that are out there that shows you how to do exercises without equipment. You can do just stretching, for example, helps your blood flow. There's all kinds of things you can do without equipment. If you have equipment, stop using it to hold your laundry, get it out there, spend 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever works for you every day. It's amazing how, one, that helps you to manage stress, more importantly, how it puts keeps your body in a parasympathetic state. Sleep. Sleep is a big one. Sleep is the one that my doctors have talked about. I talked about Dr. John Bergman. He is heavy on that, because that is when our parasympathetic state works the best, is when we're sleeping. So getting adequate sleep, our bodies are going to go into repair, our digestive system is going to do what it needs to do, our stress levels are going to be reduced. And then the final thing I'd like to talk about is actually three things. I need you to laugh, laugh, and laugh. Laughing does some really, really good things for our bodies. And it keeps us out of our stress mode. It changes that thought process that creates the situation that we have. And understand, I want to make sure I emphasize that when we stay in the stress mode, and we have the COVID-19, we have the distancing, we have the financial situations, I totally get all of that. And we have all of those things that are coming together that generates those thought processes that puts us in that sympathetic state. But understand what's happening. When you're in that state, you're actually doing the opposite of what we're trying to do. We're trying not to get sick. We'll get sick because our immune systems get suppressed. So let's wrap it up. I talked about stress and what stress actually is. I talked about the three different types of stress. I've talked about the system and how the body handles that stress and what it actually does to us. And I've talked about how something as simple as changing our thought process and doing things that make us feel better can in fact reduce our stress and actually help us to be healthier. And then finally, I talked about the things that you can do to help out. So hopefully that was helpful for you today. And again, there are resources out there available to you. Like I said, we'll put the auxiliary cost program out there for you, and hopefully that'll help you. Thank you for listening.